Never imagined grief could turn into something like this. I always thought the worst part about losing someone was the silence. The empty seat at the dinner table. The calls you almost make before remembering they're not going to answer. But I was wrong. The worst part isn't the silence. It's realizing someone you trusted used that silence against you. My name's Eli, I'm 23, and about a year ago, I lost my dad to a sudden heart attack. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. He wasn't perfect, but he was mine. He taught me how to drive, showed up to every birthday, every school event. He even cried the day I got into college. He was that kind of dad, the one who actually showed up, and I think that's why it hit me as hard as it did. In those first few months, I was a mess, like, not even functional. But there was one person, just one, who stood by me through all of it. Jake, my best friend since I was 6. We grew up 2 doors down from each other. He was practically part of our family. Spent holidays with us. Knew how my mom took her coffee. Even called my dad Pops. When the heart attack happened, Jake got to the hospital before I did. He helped plan the funeral. Sat next to me during the service. He even stayed over that first night, when the house felt like a tomb. I remember crying so hard I couldn't breathe. And Jake just sat on the floor with me, a hand on my shoulder, saying nothing, just there. So, yeah, I trusted him, completely. Even after we started drifting a bit. Me going back to school, him chasing some online hustle. I never saw it as a real divide. He was always doing something new. Selling sneakers, NFTs, copy-pasting Fiverr gigs. It all felt like low-level stuff. Sketchy, maybe. But nothing dangerous. At the time, I figured, who was he really hurting? But that's the thing about people like Jake. The ones who live in the gray areas, always towing the line. Eventually, they stopped seeing the line altogether. I thought I was done grieving. I thought the worst was behind me. But the real nightmare hadn't even begun. It started with a photo. A random listing on some secondhand site. I was scrolling out of boredom. And there it was. A profile, using my dad's name and his face, smiling like he was still alive, selling power tools. I stared at the listing for a long time. Too long. At first, I honestly thought it was just a messed up coincidence. Same name. Maybe the photo just looked like my dad. People can resemble each other, right? But the longer I stared, the more everything in me started to tighten, because it wasn't just similar. It was him. The photo on the profile. It was one of the last pictures I ever took of my dad. He was standing out front, grinning like a little kid, holding up a new drill he'd just bought at the flea market. He was so proud of it. The guy couldn't fix anything to save his life, but he loved buying tools. Said it made him feel like he could fix things again. That moment meant something to me. And now, here it was, cropped, reused, slapped on a stranger's profile like it was nothing. Like he was nothing. The account name was Tool Time Tom. It didn't just feel familiar, it hit me like a sucker punch. Jake used to call my dad that. Tool Time Tom? Like the guy from Home Improvement. He thought it was hilarious. He even had my dad's name saved like that in his phone. No one else called him that. Just Jake. I clicked the seller profile. 3 listings. A power drill, a used generator, and an old motorcycle. All priced just low enough to seem like a good deal. I scrolled down. No reviews, no ratings. But there was a phone number and a Cash App tag. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. But then I saw it. JS88. It was like a punch to the chest. I hadn't seen that tag in years, but I knew it instantly. It was Jake's old gamer handle. J for Jake, S for his last name. 88 because he thought repeating numbers made him look like a brand. It was on everything back in high school. Our Xbox accounts, a hoodie he had custom made, even our shared YouTube channel. He used that username for years. My mouth went dry. I closed the app, then reopened it, thinking maybe I was hallucinating. Nope, still there. Same photo, same fake items. Same username Jake had used since we were teenagers. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about every moment he ever consoled me. Every lie dressed as comfort. I remembered how he hugged me at the funeral. How he told me, "If there's anything you ever need, I've got you, man. Your dad was like my second father." Second father, huh? Was that supposed to justify this? Or was it just a preview of the betrayal I hadn't seen coming? I kept digging, because I didn't want to believe it. I needed to be wrong. I checked Facebook Marketplace, Same photo, same item descriptions, same city, my city. Even the street names in the post were pulled from neighborhoods around where we lived. I searched the Cash App handle. There were Reddit threads, scam reports, even screenshots from buyers warning people not to trust it. Some guy said he sent $300 for a chainsaw that never arrived. Another said, Tom ghosted him after receiving payment for a generator. They were all talking about my dad, but they didn't know it. To them, he was just another online scammer. Just another fake name with a smiling face. And Jake? He wasn't just impersonating my father. He was selling pieces of his identity, like they were nothing more than junk in a digital garage sale. I sat there at 2 in the morning, scrolling through dozens of fake listings, with this crushing realization sinking in. Jake had planned this. This wasn't random. This wasn't grief-induced. This was methodical, calculated. He knew my dad meant everything to me. And somehow, that didn't stop him. If anything, I think it's what gave him the idea in the first place. I didn't want it to be true, even with all the signs pointing right at him. Even with the photo, the usernames, the scam reports, there was still this tiny part of me clinging to the idea that it had to be someone else. Someone pretending to be him. Or maybe someone hacked his old handle. I even texted him the next morning. Hey man, random question, you ever sell a drill online recently? A few minutes went by. Then he replied, Lol, no? Why? I stared at the message. 3 words, no punctuation. And yet, something about it felt off. No confusion. No, what are you talking about? No, you good? I decided to call him. He didn't pick up. Texted again. Busy with work? I'll call you later. He never did. 3 days passed, and the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I pulled together everything I'd found. Screenshots, usernames, listing URLs. I even checked an old folder of ours from high school where we saved creative projects. In the metadata of one of the scam images, Jake had used the same naming structure we used to title our Minecraft builds. Down to the file format, it was his digital fingerprint, and he didn't even try to hide it. So I showed up at his place, knocked on the door harder than I meant to. He opened it with this casual grin like nothing was wrong. Yo, Eli, what's up? I didn't even bother with small talk. I know you're using my dad's identity. I found the listings, the Cash App. It's your gamer tag. Your name's in the metadata, Jake. For a second, just a second, his face flickered. It was fast, like a crack in a mask. But it was there. Then he played dumb. Dude, what are you even talking about? You think I'd do that to you? It must be someone else. I haven't used that tag in forever. You know people spoof stuff. His voice was too smooth, too calm. I'd seen him lose his mind over way less. This was rehearsed. You called him Tool Time Tom, I said. You used that name for the account. He looked at me, then smiled. You told me I could always talk to your mom. Maybe she mentioned it. That's when something snapped in me. He had no right to bring my mom into this. I stepped toward him. Did you go to her after he died? Did you try to get her to sell his stuff? And then he flinched. It was small, but I saw it. You know what? I said. You're not just a thief, you're a parasite. You latched onto our grief like it was a business opportunity. Jake didn't deny it, didn't say anything at all, just leaned against the doorframe and muttered, You don't know what it's like. You had everything. A dad who gave a damn. A family that actually cared. I was sleeping on a couch for 2 years while you were getting hugged every night. I just stood there, because in that moment, I realized something even worse. This wasn't just about money. It never was. This was envy. Rotten, festering envy that had been sitting in him for years. He treated me better than my own dad ever did, Jake said, voice low. Sometimes I think he loved me more than he loved you. I don't remember what I said after that. I think I told him to stay away from my family. That if I ever saw another fake listing or another fake fund, I'd go to the police. He shrugged. Like I just accused him of borrowing my hoodie without asking. As I turned to leave, he said something I'll never forget. Don't worry, man. No hard feelings. Just don't come crying to me if people start looking at you funny. I didn't realize what he meant at the time, but I would. Soon. I wasn't going to confront him at first. I really wasn't. I told myself I'd just gather the evidence, report it, let karma do its thing. But every time I tried to focus on school or work or even just breathe, that photo of my dad kept coming back. that smile, that damn drill, turned into bait for a scam. And every time I looked at my phone, I saw Jake's name sitting in my texts like a virus I hadn't deleted. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't think, so I got in my car, and I drove. He lived in this rundown apartment complex on the edge of town, same place he'd moved into after getting kicked out of his mom's house 2 years ago. The walls were peeling, the mailbox was duct-taped shut. The hallway smelled like weed and microwave noodles. I didn't even knock at first, just stood in front of the door, fist raised, hand shaking, and for a second, I almost turned around. But then I thought about my mom, about how she still kept my dad's boots by the front door, like she couldn't accept they'd never be used again. I knocked. It took a while for him to open the door. When he finally did, he looked surprised, but not guilty, just annoyed, like I'd interrupted him mid-scroll. "Yo, you good?" He said it like nothing was wrong, like we hadn't spoken in weeks, like my father's identity wasn't sitting in his Cash App history. "We need to talk," I said. He stepped aside. Let me in. His apartment was a mess. Boxes everywhere. Open Red Bull cans. 3 monitors lit up with cryptographs and Discord servers. One of them had a fake ID template open. I froze, just stared at it. He noticed. "Freelance project." He said it without missing a beat. I didn't respond, just sat down on his couch. "You're using my dad's name. I found your listings, the generator, the chainsaw, the GoFundMe." His jaw tightened, just a bit, but he kept his tone flat. "You've been in deep Reddit holes again, haven't you? Man, you gotta stop looking for stuff to be mad about. That's not me. It's your handle, JS88. It's a burner, dude, spoofed. You think I'd use my own tag if I was doing something shady?" That one almost got me. For a second, it made just enough sense to plant doubt. But then I said, "I saw the metadata from an old file we edited in high school. You titled the scam photos the same way we named Minecraft builds." Silence. His face didn't twitch. He just leaned back in his chair and smiled. "You've been keeping tabs, huh? Guess grief makes people obsessive." "Did you talk to my mom?" I asked. That cracked him. Just a flicker. But the smile slipped. "She said you helped her clean the garage, that you took photos of the tools." He shrugged. "She asked for help. I helped. If she thought I did something wrong, she would have said something. You know how your mom is." That moment, that was the first time I truly wanted to hit him. He was using my mother's grief to cover his tracks, manipulating her trust, pretending to care while plotting scams with her husband's face. "Jake, what's wrong with you? What happened to you?" And then he said something I didn't expect. "You think I had what you had? A dad who gave a damn? You got bedtime stories, I got slammed doors. You had Christmas, I had missed rent and yelling through walls. Your dad treated me better than anyone ever did. I used to wish he was my dad." His voice cracked a little. For a second, just a second, I felt something close to sympathy. But then he added, "I figured, why should all that affection die with him? He helped you, now he's helping me." I stood up, heart racing. "You used his death to make money. You stole from him, from me, from my family." Jake laughed, full-on laughed. "People donated because they felt bad for you, Eli. They saw your story and pitched in. That's called effective marketing." I turned to leave, but before I could grab the door handle, he said one more thing. "You know, man, you might want to start clearing your inbox. People are gonna start asking questions soon." I stopped cold. "What are you talking about?" He just smiled again. "Sometimes it helps to leave a few digital breadcrumbs, you know, just in case the cops come knocking." After that visit, something in me shifted. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was scared, because I finally understood something. Jake hadn't just been using my dad's name. He'd been thinking ahead, planning, planting seeds, and I had no idea how many of them had already started to grow. It started 2 days later. I got a DM on Instagram from someone I didn't know. The message just said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." I stared at it, confused. Then another one came in. Then another. Within the next hour, I got 7 more messages. Some were angry, others were confused. A couple said they'd sent me money through Cash App and wanted to know when I'd be shipping their item. And that's when it hit me. Jake wasn't just impersonating my dad, He was impersonating me. I checked the screenshots they sent, and I swear, my heart nearly stopped. The profile had my name, my photo, even my graduation picture. And the bio? It read, "Trying to get back on my feet after losing my dad? Anything helps." There was a link to a GoFundMe with my face on it, and it had already raised almost $2,700. I clicked the page, scanned through the donors. A few names looked familiar. People from my old high school. People who probably saw the post shared in some community group and thought it was legit. The description read, "Eli recently lost his father. He's struggling to make ends meet, pay tuition, and support his grieving mother. Please consider helping him move forward. Every dollar counts." It was disgusting, twisted, but worse than that, it was convincing. The page used real details, real dates, even quoted part of the eulogy I gave at the funeral. Word for word. Jake had been planning this for months. I reported the page. I flagged everything, tried messaging the platform, but I couldn't keep up. More DMS came in, people asking why I hadn't said thank you, people accusing me of being a scammer, people calling me every name you can imagine. A guy from my college emailed my professor, asking if he was aware that one of his students was running donation scams. I found screenshots of my face being posted in Facebook groups, subreddits. Even one guy on TikTok made a video calling me out. The comments were brutal. "He's preying on sympathy. Fake story for cash. Another scammer using daddy's death for clout." It wasn't just online anymore. It was everywhere. My name was being dragged through the mud by people who didn't even know me. And the few that did, they stayed silent. That was the part that hurt the most. I knew I had to go to the police. I couldn't let this spiral any further, not with my name, my face, all over the internet like that. So I gathered everything I had. Screenshots, URLs, GoFundMe links, DMS from strangers. I printed it all, stuck it in a folder, and walked into the precinct like I was turning myself in. The officer at the front desk asked my name. I gave it. He typed for a second, then looked up at me. And that's when my stomach dropped. He already had my name on file. Apparently, someone had filed a complaint the night before. A woman claiming I scammed her out of $350 for a fake tool bundle. She said she found me through a Reddit post, messaged me privately, and was promised tracking info that never came. She showed them screenshots, DM as the GoFundMe link. The usernames all matched my name. The profile picture was one I had actually used on my old high school Facebook account. I tried to explain everything, told the officer it was all fake, that someone was using my name, my story, to run scams. He nodded like he understood, but his face said something different. Like maybe he'd heard this excuse before. Like maybe I was the scammer trying to do damage control. I pulled out the folder, showed him the metadata breakdowns, pointed out the reused usernames, the similarities in formatting, even circled Jake's old handle on one of the listings. The officer flipped through it all in silence, then said, "We'll be looking into this. In the meantime, might be best if you stayed off social media." I walked out of that building feeling like the walls were closing in. I hadn't done anything wrong, but somehow I felt guilty, like I was being swallowed by this thing that Jake built. This digital trap where I was the villain and he got to sit back and watch it happen. That night I started tearing my room apart. Every old device, every login, every password I could remember. I had to find something, some thread to pull, because if the cops wouldn't believe me, I'd need to prove it myself. That's when I found it. My old laptop, dusty, dead battery, tucked under my bed. I hadn't used it since before my dad passed, but I remembered lending it to Jake a few months ago, back when he said his computer crashed. I plugged it in, booted it up, and what I found made my blood run cold. There was a Gmail account logged in, not one of mine. A burner address, but it used my full name. I opened the sent folder. Emails to people asking for donations. Fake thank you messages for GoFundMe contributions. Order confirmations for Craigslist listings. Even one that was addressed to someone posing as my mom. It was detailed. It had her tone, even her sign-off. Jake had copied my mom's writing style, used her grief, her voice, to scam people out of their money. I sat there in the dark, the laptop screen casting this sick blue light over everything, and I just broke. For the first time since my dad died, I felt completely helpless. I'd been violated, humiliated, and now hunted by people who thought I was the villain. I went back through browser history, cookies, login timestamps, and that's when I struck gold. One of the Craigslist posts, the one for the Veterans Tool Bundle, was created using a connection from Jake's home Wi-Fi. The IP address matched a trace I pulled from a site we used for gaming back in the day. He slipped up. I screen capped everything, compiled it into a second folder. This time, I added timestamps, email headers, raw logs from the Gmail account. I even found a tiny detail, a folder labeled JS Tools 2023, with Jake's real name listed as the author in the file properties. I called the officer back, told him I had new evidence. He agreed to meet the next day. This time, it was different. He took me into a back room, closed the door, and I laid it all out. The burner account, the sent emails, the IP address trace, the file metadata, everything. He didn't say much at first, just nodded slowly, then said, "We'll be in touch, and thank you for being thorough." As I left the station, I didn't feel relieved, not yet. But I did feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Like maybe, finally, the truth had a shot at catching up. The next 2 days were quiet. Almost too quiet. No more messages, no new posts. The GoFundMe was taken down. The fake profiles disappeared. And for a second, I thought, maybe that was it. Maybe Jake saw the heat coming and cut his losses. Maybe he vanished into the internet like a cockroach when the lights come on. But then I got the call. Unknown number, local area code. I answered, and it was the officer. His voice was calm, professional, but there was a hint of something else there. Satisfaction. Just wanted to let you know, we picked up Jake S. this morning. I didn't speak, didn't breathe. He kept talking. He's being held on multiple charges: identity theft, wire fraud, impersonation, and intent to defraud. We're still going through his electronics, but your logs were a huge help. They matched up with timestamps on his devices and some conversations we recovered. We're also contacting a few of the victims to clear your name formally. I think I whispered thank you. I honestly don't remember, because everything else just melted. The fear, the anxiety, the anger, it didn't disappear, but it cracked. And for the first time in weeks, I could finally exhale. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't cheer, didn't cry. I just stood there, phone in my hand, staring out my bedroom window, and all I could think was, he's actually gone. Later that afternoon, the news broke. There wasn't a huge headline or anything, just a local report. Man arrested for identity theft scheme involving deceased victim. They didn't use our full names, but anyone who knew us knew. His mugshot was in the article, and when I saw it, when I looked at that empty stare, the hollow, distant version of the kid I grew up with, something twisted in my chest. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like a funeral. They found fake IDs on him, 6 burner phones, a spreadsheet with names, photos, donation amounts. They even found audio recordings, voice memos Jake made while practicing different versions of his scam. In one of them, he was mocking grieving donors, laughing about how people love a sob story, saying, "Give them a dead dad and a clean photo and they'll toss you $100 easy." That one made me sick. I don't know what his endgame was. Maybe there wasn't one. Maybe he just wanted to burn everything on his way down. But it didn't matter anymore, because he was finally caught. And he didn't go quietly, either. The officer told me Jake tried to play the victim, said I was the mastermind, said I manipulated him, said he was just helping out with a friend's idea. But they had too much. Too many files, too many matches, too many lies. And the best part? One of his own accomplices flipped. A guy Jake had looped in to help manage the GoFundMe in exchange for a cut. He gave up everything: messages, voice memos, PayPal logs. It was over. Really, truly over. But closure doesn't hit you all at once. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment. A single breath where you realize you're no longer drowning. I went to my dad's grave that night. No big speech, no dramatic apology, just me. And silence. I sat down, placed my phone next to the headstone and said, "It's done. I wish I could say that once Jake was arrested, everything went back to normal. That people apologized, that the hate messages stopped, that my name was magically cleared in everyone's eyes. But that's not how it works. The police cleared me. Sure, but the internet? People don't refresh their opinions as fast as a news feed. A few classmates messaged me saying they knew something felt off, but they never spoke up. A few others just blocked me, pretended it never happened. No apologies, just silence. The GoFundMe was taken down, but the screenshots live forever. So do the Reddit threads, the TikTok video, The comments calling me a liar. Sometimes I still get tagged in things. Sometimes people DM me asking if I'm that guy who faked a dead dad for money. I deleted all my accounts, wiped everything, started over under a new handle, private everything. Even now, part of me flinches when I get a notification, like it might be someone new, dragging my name through the dirt all over again. I told my mom everything. Finally, she cried, not because of the scams, but because Jake had been in our home, had eaten our food, had hugged her. She said, "I always knew he had pain. I just didn't know he'd pass it on to you." I started therapy. Honestly, I should have done it after my dad died. But this forced me to deal with grief in a way I never expected. Because the weirdest part wasn't that Jake used my dad's name. It's that dash. For a while, he wasn't lying. He really did miss him. He really did love him. He really did cry at the funeral. And that made it worse. Because if even someone like Jake could break like that, what does that say about the rest of us? I don't trust people the same way anymore. I second-guess everything, every message and every compliment. It's exhausting. But I'm learning how to breathe through it, one day at a time. Sometimes I visit my dad's grave. I sit there and talk about stupid stuff, new movies, weird things I've seen on the walkover, things I wish he could have been here for. I still hear Jake's voice sometimes, not in a haunting way, just echoes, little phrases he used to say, laughs that now feel like punches. But I don't hate him anymore, not in the way I used to. I pity him, I fear him, but I don't hate him, because hate gives him too much space in my chest. So, yeah, this story doesn't end with revenge. It ends with damage. But damage doesn't mean defeat. It just means I lived through something, and I'm still living. If you take anything from this, it's this: grief doesn't always come in waves. Sometimes it walks in wearing a familiar face. And sometimes healing means learning how to stop bleeding, even if the scar never fades.